Mr. President.
Hi, thank you very much.
Okay, by the way, we're on a beautiful Air Force One. Not a bad plane.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. It's a beautiful plane, and we're doing a lot of business. We have a lot of good things happening.
Okay, so this is an amazing week so far. You get a deal with China. I'm just going to list it, and then we can get into detail. India and Pakistan played a big role. Hopefully, the peace stands. You slash prescription drug prices. Most favored nation, the American people will get.
What's up, America? I just watched Trump's interview on Air Force One. Trump reveals the most exciting part of the China deal. And let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack. Let's watch.
First dibs in terms of prices. The last American hostage has been released. We're on this trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar. There's not much going on in your life, is there?
Well, I've been busy, but I've enjoyed it because we're getting things accomplished. We're getting things done. You know, you can have times when you're working very hard and not getting things done. That happens too. But we're getting a lot done. I don't think there's ever been a little period like this with the potential nuclear war. And two countries, they have very good leaders, people I know very well. And, you know, it was a very important process. We got involved with India and Pakistan.
You got involved early. Can you give us a little insight what happened behind the scenes? How were you able?
Well, I didn't like what was happening. And you hear, you know, they're two very strongly nuclear countries, very, very powerful amount of nuclear too, serious stuff. And if that ever started, boy, that's the beginning of something that could be really bad. Even a minimal, you could have millions of people killed. And with one shot, two shots, and I just thought it was something we could get involved in. And I did a good job, Marco did a good job, and JD did a good job. We sort of were a team, and we, I think, convinced them to let's have peace and let's go and make trade deals. If we can make trade deals, we like that much better than nuclear weapons. And that was a great thing, and we did a good job with the Houthis. They stopped with the shooting of the ships. They like shooting ships down.
Is that a done deal? Because there's been conflicting reports that some of their leaders are saying, oh, that's not true.
Well, it is with respect to America. Now, you know, you can't always count on somebody necessarily telling the truth, but their surrogates were very strong, very powerful, very good relationship with them. You know, they're tough fighters. They can take a lot of punishment, but with respect to America, they say it's true. So we'll see. You'll know. You'll be the first to know, won't you?
I follow the news closely. I read everything. I think the biggest surprise from this weekend, it was a week ago Friday, where I saw that China announced, quote, if the president is serious, we will be willing to negotiate with him. And Scott Bessent, your Treasury Secretary, met with their representatives in Geneva on Saturday. On Monday, you're announcing a trade, well, actually on Sunday, you announced a deal with China.
Yeah.
How did that happen that quickly?
Well, they met on Saturday and Sunday, and they had a deal pretty much from the beginning. It was the concept of a deal. And, you know, one of the things that, as you know, it's sort of a 90-day deal as we negotiate other aspects. But one of the things I think that could be most exciting for us and also for China is that we're trying to open up China. Because, as you know, many years ago we opened up the USA. Now it's time for China to open up, and that's part of our deal. And we're going to open up China. To me, that's the most exciting part. But, yeah, we made a deal. The relationship is very good. I've always had a good relationship with President Xi. It was interrupted because of COVID, obviously. But outside of that, I've always had a great relationship, a lot of respect for him. And we'll see how that all works out. But we have the confines of a very, very strong deal with China. But the most exciting part of the deal, it was mentioned, but we don't talk about it yet. That's the opening up of China to U.S. business. And that would be like opening up a whole new world, and I think it would be even better for China. So I think we'll be able to make that deal, I hope.
At any point, do you foresee yourself dealing directly with President Xi on the final details of this deal?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm not sure that it'll be necessary, but that happened with the UK. We were close to a deal, but we needed 1 point or 2 points on pork and ethanol, okay, two very different subjects. And I called up the Prime Minister, who's an excellent man, Keir, excellent man. And within about 3 minutes, it was over. We made the deal. It was a good deal for everybody. And we have a lot of deals now. We have a lot of trade deals that I'd say virtually everybody wants to make a deal.
When I first saw you, and thank you for letting us cover this and report on this from Air Force One. When I first saw you, I think you were more excited. You were excited about the China deal, but prescription drugs, which has been very, very painful for a lot of Americans. 80% of medications are created in America, and then we end up paying more for those medications. Foreign countries do not pay as much as we do. You said that is over. Can you explain why this is such a big deal?
Well, for many years we were taken advantage of by other countries and the drug companies, but I blame the other countries in a way more, the European Union, etc. They were very nasty and very tough to the drug companies, and they would give them a very low price for drug costs in the European nations. And when that price was given, that was it. They wouldn't negotiate. They said, let America pay for the difference. And this happened all over the world with other countries, and we had stupid people leading us, and especially over the last 4 years, and they wouldn't do anything about it. And it turned out that we were paying, and sometimes you saw 10 times more for the same drug. Same drug, same company, same plant where they make it, laboratory. And it got to a point where I said, we're not going to do this anymore. The pharmaceutical industry is very powerful, and probably the most powerful, considered the most powerful lobby. And the Democrats were making it impossible to lower drug prices. They knew what they were doing. And I instituted a most favored nations provision or concept where we're going to pay whatever the lowest country pays in the world. So if it's the UK, which pays very low, in any country, it could be any country, whatever the lowest price is. And the drug companies have accepted it, everybody accepts it, but the Democrats never wanted to play ball. They never wanted to do anything. It's the Democrats' fault that people were being ripped off for years and years. And now I hear Democrats saying, oh, well, we're going to now go for the bill. It's going to be very hard for them not to approve the big, beautiful bill that we're doing. We're doing the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country, because people are going to be getting a 50 to a 90% reduction in drug prices, not a 0.5%. I remember when I would fight so hard to get a 0.5 point, and I actually had it down a 0.5 point for 1 year, and I was so proud of myself because that never happened before. It was always going up. Drugs only went in one direction, that's up. And now, after studying the industry, it's a very complex industry, but I figured it out, and I said it's not going to happen. But the Democrats fought very hard to keep the prices of drugs very, very high. They really are to blame for this, because they should have done something about it. And when the Republicans went with requests, they said, we're not going to approve it. And now we have a unified Republican Party. But I think the Democrats are going to approve this bill, too, because how are they going to reject a 60, 70, 80% drug cut? I don't think they can.
I think it's going to be huge. The fact that these drugs are, the creation of these drugs, I mean, these companies have to go through a very arduous process to get approval by the government. They spend billions of dollars, and put aside whether or not, quote, people demonize Big Pharma. That's separate and apart. However, we usually end up creating them, and then we end up paying 10 times more, which is crazy.
Well, they used to use that, if I could interrupt, they used to use that as a reason why we were paying 5 and 10 times more than other countries. They say because of research and development. And I'd always say, well, what about you doing research and development for the rest of the world too? Why are we paying for 100%? So we paid 100% for research and development, which, along with other things, believe it or not, raised the price to a point where you were 5 to 10 times higher than the rest of the world. And I told the story today. It was well received. A friend of mine who's slightly overweight, to put it mildly, went to a drugstore in London and he was able to get one of the fat shots. I call it the fat shot, the jabs, that you lose weight.
By the way, a lot of people laugh at that. Some people get offended by. I don't get offended by anything.
I'm just glad I didn't use his name. He's actually a very rich guy. He's a very successful guy.
He's glad you didn't use his name.
No, he's very happy. Oh. He knows exactly who I was talking about. He called. He said, that was interesting. He said he was very concerned that I might use his name. It might slip. No, he doesn't have to worry. But he went to London, and he bought this...
Ozempic, Wegovy, one of those?
I guess, yeah, I'm not sure which one. But he bought one of them, maybe Ozempic. And he bought it, and he called me. He said, hey, strange thing happened. I just bought a drug, same company, same plant, same everything. Everything was the same. In one case, I paid in New York $1,300, and in London, I'm paying $88. He said, what's going on? Now, he knew nothing. He's a very smart guy. He's a very rich guy. His big problem is he's seriously overweight. But I don't think the drug worked, okay, to be honest with you. But it makes him feel good anyway. But so what happens is he said to me, I paid $88, and in New York, I get it for $1,300 or something. A massive difference. And I said, that's right, the drug laws are very screwed up, and I'm doing something about it. He said, you better, because this is crazy. He didn't understand it, but he didn't understand why. And now he understands why, because he watched our news conference this morning, holding his breath, right? But he watched the news conference. But think of it. So he goes to London, and a lot of people go shopping in nearby or even far away countries, and they'll go away once a month or once a week or something. If it's a nearby country, they'll go right across the border and they'll buy the same drug for 1/10 the price as we pay in the United States. And a part of it is the power of the drug companies, which is a very big power. But I think a bigger part is the ruthlessness of other nations to screw the United States of America. And the European Union would be the top because they represent a lot of countries, and they're brutal, according to the drug companies told me this, they're brutal in negotiations. They say, this is what we're going to pay. We're not going to pay any more. And if you need more, you get it from America. And so they get a low price, so we get a high price. And I ended it. And this has been going on for many years, but nobody realized that you could do. I think I figured out the system. Very complex chain of events take place, and I ended it. And I have to say, the drug companies were great. They were great. They said, look, it's time. They actually looked, they said, it's time.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
First off, China opening up their markets to U.S. businesses? That's huge. For decades, we've been on the losing end of that trade imbalance. If Trump pulls this off, it's a total game changer for American manufacturers, farmers, and tech companies. Then there's the India-Pakistan situation. Two nuclear powers on edge, and Trump steps in to calm the waters? Say what you will, but that takes guts and leadership. Peace always beats war, especially when nukes are involved. On top of that, he's tackling the drug price crisis. Finally, Americans shouldn't be paying 10 times more for the same meds you can get overseas. Trump's most favored nation plan ties our drug prices to the lowest in the world. That's just common sense. And when he shared that story, $1, $300 in New York versus $88 in London for the same weight loss shot, that hit home. We've been getting ripped off for years while big pharma and foreign countries make out like bandits. Glad someone's doing something real about it. Look, say what you want about Trump style, but results matter. This week alone, China deal, lower drug costs, hostage released, progress in the Middle East, peace talks with India and Pakistan. That's not just talk, that's action. As an American patriot, I want strong leadership, real results, and someone who puts America first. And this video proves Trump was doing just that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you love this country as much as I do. God bless America.